All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going back in time to explore Chi-Chi's, the Tex-Mex chain that so many people remember.
Yeah, I bet a lot of our listeners have some memories there.
We got some articles from you all online, and wow, there's a lot more to Chi-Chi's than just like tacos and
Oh,
margaritas.
for sure.
We're talking a Green Bay Packers connection, some interesting marketing, and even a public health crisis.
It's a wild ride. You know what's really interesting is how Chi-Chi's just exploded in the 70s and 80s. They weren't just like serving food, right? They
Yeah,
were creating this whole experience, like a festive atmosphere. It's a big deal back then.
I can see that.
But as we'll see, that might have actually played a role in their downfall.
Okay, so first things first, how does a football star end up in the Tex-Mex business?
So it all starts with Max McGee, a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Super Bowl champ too.
Okay.
You might have heard the story about his legendary Super Bowl performance.
Wait, are we talking about the Max McGee who caught the first ever touchdown in Super Bowl history?
Yep, that's the one. But get this, the night before the game, McGee was out celebrating, not exactly expecting to play.
Oh no.
So when he got called in because of an injury, he was, well, let's just say, not exactly game ready.
Wow, that's a bold move. Did it pay off?
Oh, it did. McGee ended up having this incredible game despite everything, 7 catches, 138 yards, and that historic touchdown.
Wow.
Makes you wonder if maybe there was a little luck involved.
A little bit, yeah. So how does this Super Bowl hero go from the field to like the kitchen?
Well, years later, after football, McGee partnered with this entrepreneur named Marno McDermot.
Okay.
They wanted to bring something new to the American dining scene.
Interesting.
They envisioned something fun, festive, and affordable, and bam, in 1975, Chi-Chi's is born.
So it's like they took that Super Bowl party vibe and made it into a restaurant. I mean, it sounds like a good plan, at least at first.
Totally. And just like that, America gets introduced to Chi-Chi's. You could get your fix of sizzling fajitas, chimichangas, and of course their famous fried ice cream.
Ah, the memories.
Oh, and the name, it actually comes from McDermott's wife's nickname.
Oh, that's fun. But was it authentic Mexican food or more like Tex-Mex?
It was Tex-Mex, like a fusion of Mexican and American flavors, which was getting really popular in the U.S. then.
Yeah.
Chi-Chi's was one of the first chains to bring that style to like a mainstream audience.
So kind of like pioneers introducing Tex-Mex to a whole generation.
Exactly.
The articles you shared mentioned they expanded pretty quickly in the early days. What was their strategy?
They went with a franchising model, which, lets you grow fast. By the
Yeah.
mid-'80s, they had over 200 locations across the country. But this rapid expansion, as successful as it was at the beginning, it led to some challenges.
Franchising can be tough. What kind of downsides did they run into?
Well, one thing was to keep that party atmosphere going, they built these massive restaurants, like somewhere over 10,000 square feet.
Whoa,
Impressive, sure, but these big spaces were expensive to run.
makes sense.
Plus, they struggled to keep things consistent across all those franchises.
Right.
And their manager turnover rate was crazy high, almost 80%,
Oh, wow.
which kind of tells you there were some internal problems.
Yeah, it sounds like they maybe grew too fast and kind of sacrificed quality control and good management.
Yeah, you got to find that balance between growth and, keeping things good. Seems like Chi-Chi's might have leaned too hard into expansion.
Yeah. What about the food itself? Did they stick with that Tex-Mex or did they branch out to other things?
That's where things get interesting.
Okay.
As we got into the late 80s, early 90s, tastes were changing. And Chi-Chi's kind of had an identity crisis.
Uh-oh.
They tried adding new dishes like pasta, stir-fry, even taco pizza.
It does seem a little odd to go to a Tex-Mex place for pasta. Were they just trying to appeal to more people, or was it like keeping up with trends?
Probably a bit of both, honestly. The restaurant world's always changing, right? Chains are always trying to stay relevant.
Right.
But for Chi-Chi's, these new menu items, they might have diluted what made them special in the first place.
Yeah, you lose what makes you you. Did these changes hurt their business?
They did. By the late 90s, Chi-Chi's was in some serious financial trouble. Their brand, which used to be so popular, was losing its appeal, and they were struggling to keep up with the competition. Seems like those attempts to, branch out didn't really work with their core customers.
It's wild how a brand can go from being like the place to be to facing those kinds of problems. What happened next? Did they try to turn things around?
They did. To try and save the company, Chi-Chi's was sold to Foodmaker Inc., the company that owns Jack in the Box.
Oh, wow.
The new owners tried to revive the brand, but it was a tough road.
So too little, too late.
Yeah, pretty much. Sadly, despite their efforts, Chi-Chi's just kept struggling. They filed for bankruptcy in 2002, which was a major turning point. But what happened after that was even bigger and tragic. It really shows how important food safety is in the restaurant business.
This must be the hepatitis A outbreak you mentioned. I definitely want to hear more about that and how it affected Chi-Chi's. Yeah, so Chi-Chi's was already having money problem, and then they got hit with this hepatitis A outbreak. What happened there?
So in 2003, this event really just changed everything for them. It all started at a Chi-Chi's in Beaver Valley, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Contaminated green onions ended up making over 600 people sick.
Wow.
And tragically, 4 people actually died.
That's awful. It really shows you how important food safety is, right? I mean, even green onions can be dangerous.
Absolutely. And, in this case, they never figured out for sure what caused the contamination.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they looked into a few things like maybe how they were handled, hygiene stuff,
Yeah.
or even if the water used to grow them was contaminated. It could have been any step along the way.
So it just shows you how complex the food supply chain is. Like one little slip up can have huge consequences. I read that they got those onions in bulk, stored them in ice, and then chopped them up for different dishes.
Right, and that kind of handling, especially with so much produce, it just makes cross-contamination more likely.
Right.
And sometimes they serve those onions raw, like as a garnish or in salsa, which didn't help.
It really makes you think about all the steps involved in making food. Washing hands, storing things properly. Every little thing matters for keeping people safe.
Yeah,
Did this whole thing change the food industry at all?
it did. The Chi-Chi's outbreak really brought attention to traceability, like knowing where your food comes from and how it's handled at every step. It also showed how vulnerable our food system is, especially when it comes to fresh produce.
I remember reading about that produce traceability initiative that started in 2008. Was that because of what happened at Chi-Chi's?
Yeah, it was. That initiative is all about tracking produce better, from the farm to your plate. The idea is if there's an outbreak, you can quickly figure out where it came from and stop it from spreading.
So something good came out of it. I guess Chi-Chi's, even though they didn't make it, their story served as a warning for the whole restaurant industry.
For sure, it highlighted how important those food safety practices are, and being transparent about your supply chain. It wasn't just Tex-Mex places either. It made everyone take a hard look at their standards.
And probably led to stricter regulations and inspections too, right?
Absolutely, like the FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act that passed in 2011, that was shaped a lot by things like the Chi-Chi's outbreak. That law shifted the focus from reacting to outbreaks to trying to prevent them in the first place.
So a big shift to being proactive, which makes sense considering how bad foodborne illnesses can be.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that Chi-Chi's did try to do something right after the outbreak. They closed that location, made their food safety rules stricter, and tried to be more open about what they were doing.
But as we said, the damage was done. Their reputation was already hurting because of the money problems and branding issues. They just couldn't bounce back from this.
Trust is everything, especially for restaurants. Once you lose it, it's so hard to get back no matter what you do.
It's kind of sad because for a lot of people, Chi-Chi's was more than just a place to eat. It was where they had parties, met up with friends, made memories.
It was part of their lives. That's what makes this whole story so, so impactful. It shows how brands can become part of our personal experiences and, like, the culture.
So what can we learn from all this as consumers? I mean, there are lessons here that go beyond just food, right?
Definitely. I think it shows how important it is to be informed. We should support businesses that care about food safety and are honest about what they're doing.
Yeah.
We can ask questions, read reviews, hold them accountable.
And choose to spend our money at places share our values.
Exactly. Another thing is that change is inevitable. Even the biggest brands can be affected by trends, the economy, and, unexpected stuff.
Yeah.
Being able to adapt is crucial. Businesses that can change and innovate are the ones that survive. Chi-Chi's may not have made it, but their story is a good lesson for both businesses and consumers. It's about the excitement and risks of growing too fast, how important food safety is, and the power of nostalgia.
And about resilience. Even though the restaurants are closed, the brand is still out there in a different way. Those Chi-Chi's salsas and dips you see at the store. That shows you how much people still like them.
Like a second life, huh?
It's kind of cool, right? It shows the power of brand recognition and how much people crave those familiar tastes.
Okay, so we know Chi-Chi's closed in 2004, but what happened after that? Did the brand just disappear?
Well, like we've been talking about, the Chi-Chi's brand actually lived on in grocery stores.
Okay.
But there's also this story of what happened to all those restaurant buildings. It's not like they just vanished overnight. There's always more to the story. I'm curious to know what happened to those properties and how Chi-Chi's kept going on grocery shelves. So last we left off talking about those Chi-Chi's grocery products and what happened to their restaurants after they closed down. Let's start with the buildings. What happened to them?
Well, get this. Outback Steakhouse actually bought all the remaining Chi-Chi's properties in 2004.
Outback? Really? That's kind of surprising. I wouldn't, picture those two chains together.
Yeah, it's a bit of a head-scratcher. They paid $42.5 million for them, and a lot of those spots were in really good locations.
Huh. Were they going to turn them into Outback steakhouses?
Not really. The thing Outback wanted was the real estate, not the Chi-Chi's brand.
Oh, so they just wanted the land.
Yeah, it happens sometimes in the restaurant world. Companies buy properties not to keep the business going, but for the land itself.
So it was more like a smart business move.
Exactly. They were buying the dirt, not the history. It is kind of sad, though, considering how big Chi-Chi's used to be.
Yeah, I get that. But at least their story didn't just end there. We've talked about their salsa and dips, how you can still buy them in grocery stores. How did that part of their business, survive when the restaurants couldn't?
Well, back in 1987, Hormel Foods, the company that makes Spam,
Yeah, yeah.
they bought the rights to make and sell Chi-Chi's grocery store stuff.
Whoa, 1987. That's way before they had all their problems. Almost like they had a plan B.
Smart move, right? They saw that the Chi-Chi's name had value, and they knew branching out to grocery stores could be big. By 96, those Chi-Chi's products were making something like $60 million a year.
That's incredible. While their restaurants were going downhill, their salsa was flying off the shelves.
Exactly. It just shows you success can come from the most unexpected places.
Totally. And it goes to show how strong a brand name can be. Even if people stopped going to the restaurants, they still had good feelings about Chi-Chi's, those familiar flavors.
Yeah, like a taste of the past.
It's funny how those grocery products have actually kept the Chi-Chi's name out there, and they've even tried to reach out to younger people. Didn't they do a TikTok campaign recently?
Yep, in 2021, they worked with this popular influencer to try and reintroduce the brand to a new generation. It was a cool way to use that nostalgia and get people talking.
Makes you wonder, could Chi-Chi's make a comeback? New restaurants, but this time with a focus on, better food, more authentic, and of course food safety.
Who knows? It's definitely possible. We've seen other brands do it. But even if the restaurants don't come back, their story's still out there. Those grocery products are a reminder of what they meant to American food.
I think it's a great example of how a brand can change and adapt. The original Chi-Chi's might be gone, but their story definitely isn't over.
It's a wild story, right? Ups and downs, successes and failures. It shows the problems with growing too fast, how important it is to stay true to who you are, and of course how crucial food safety is. And hey, it reminds us how food can create memories and become a part of, our culture.
It's been a blast taking this deep dive into the world of Chi-Chi's. Super Bowl connections, questionable marketing, a public health scare, and a surprising second life in the grocery aisle. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
As always, subscribe to our channel, like this video, and comment below.
Yeah, leave us your thoughts.
Let us know what you think.
And don't forget to check out the links in the description. You might find some useful stuff there. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.